The film is set during the imperial Joseon Dynasty under the reign of King Gwanghwae-gun. The story begins on a fateful night when the king, accompanied by his infant daughter and a lone bodyguard, is forced to flee the palace to escape a violent coup. This rebellion was orchestrated by royal officials who had once been the king's allies but turned against him due to his refusal to take a definitive side in the escalating conflict between the Ming and Qing dynasties. King Gwanghwae's decision to remain neutral was a calculated move for the survival of his people. He feared that publicly supporting the Ming would provoke the formidable Qing dynasty into a colonizing invasion of Joseon. Conversely, siding with the Qing would have been viewed as a betrayal of the Ming dynasty, which had famously aided Joseon against Japanese imperial forces years prior. Caught in this geopolitical deadlock, the king maintained his neutrality, believing it was the only way to protect his kingdom. Unfortunately, many high-ranking officials viewed this neutrality as an act of ingratitude toward the Ming. Driven by their disappointment and a desire to form a new government that would explicitly support their old allies, they launched their insurrection. As the rebels closed in, it fell upon the king's most loyal bodyguard, Sabak, to protect the royal family. A master swordsman and the most devoted protector of the Gwanghwae line, Sabak became the final barrier between the king and those who sought his throne. At that time, as an honorable swordsman, Sabak will have a duel fight with another royal swordsman named Min-hyuk. Seung-ho apparently still hesitates to carry out a rebellion because King Gwanghwae is a good and wise king. However, he joined the rebellion due to the king's decision not to support the Ming dynasty and being provoked by another official named Lee Muk-yo. The duel begins between Sabak, who wants to protect the king, and Seung-ho, who rebelled. The battle between the two best swordsmen is fierce, but Sabak is suddenly in a difficult position when his sword shatters and the blade shards hit his eyes. Seeing this, King Gwanghwae decided to surrender himself to the rebels and was forced to surrender his throne as king of Joseon to the rebel officials. But before he was taken away into exile, King Gwanghwae handed over a torn piece of his robes to Sabak and motioned for him to take care of his baby girl. When Sabak leaves with the daughter of King Gwanghwae, he recalls the memories of the past when he met him for the first time. At that time, Sabak fought against several prison guards from the Qing Dynasty alone after he managed to escape from the Qing Dynasty dungeon. Seung-ho and King Gwanghwae, who is a swordsman, realize that Sabak has the potential to become the best swordsman. Therefore, King Gwanghwae brought him to the kingdom to receive special training from swordsmen and appointed him as the bodyguard of the royal family. Sabak is so grateful for all the goodness of King Gwanghwae that he is determined to always be loyal to the king and always protect the royal family. 18 years after the events of the royal rebellion, Sabak takes care of the daughter of King Gwanghwae and lives in the mountains so that the royal Joseon troops cannot find them. Even he changed his name to Tae-yul and named the king's daughter Tae-uk and took care of her as his own daughter. Every day they survive by hunting and selling the skins of their prey to the nearby market. Tae-yul feels comfortable living a life away from war and enjoying his life with Tae-ok in peace. But all that calm began to be disturbed when Tae-yul's eyes worsened daily, and he almost lost sight. Tae-ok, who was worried, called a male physician to check the condition of her father's eyes so that he would not go blind. After examining Tae-yul, the physician advises them to immediately treat Tae-yul's eyes using herbal medicine, which is only available at the village trading post. The next day, Tae-yul and Tae-ok descended from the mountain and headed to the village to buy the herbal medicine they needed at the trading post. At this time, the Joseon kingdom was led by a king named Inju to replace the position of King Gwanghwae, who was previously dethroned by force. That day, King Inju met with high-ranking officials, including Seung-ho and Muk-yo, to discuss a solution to the cruelty of the Qing Dynasty, which carried out colonization on the borders of the Joseon kingdom and enslaved the Joseon people. The Qing Dynasty began to colonize since King Inju supported the Ming Dynasty and dismissed officials who did not support his decision. As a protest, the Ming Dynasty began to colonize the Joseon kingdom and kidnap the women of the Joseon people as slaves. Joseon royal officials were worried, but they couldn't do much because the Qing Dynasty demanded a huge ransom to free the enslaved Joseon people. King Inju and other high officials were also worried that if this condition continued, their children and wives would become victims of slavery. Muk-yo then offered to negotiate with the leader of the slave post named Gurutai. The next day, Seung-ho intends to resign from the position of a royal official because he feels guilty for the Joseon people, who are suffering more and more after they overthrow the throne of King Gwanghwae. The scene returns to Tae-yul and Tae-ok, who have arrived at the village and pass a market that sells various beads and goods that catch Taeoki's attention. In the middle of the market, suddenly, they saw a husband who wanted to release his wife, who was about to be made a slave by the Ming Dynasty's henchmen. Still, because the rates for freeing slaves were increasing, the husband could only beg for his wife to be released. Taeoka, who saw all that, felt sorry and intended to help him, but Tae-yul immediately stopped her and asked her not to interfere. The soldiers of the Joseon kingdom came to deal with the commotion, but after they saw the 3 slave overseers from the Ming Dynasty, they couldn't do much and chose to leave. On the other hand, Mukyo has a meeting with the slave post leader named Gurutai, who is known as one of the most ruthless swordsmen and is a cousin of the emperor of the very corrupt Qing Dynasty. At the meeting, Seung-ho, who was also there, felt very angry when Gurutai issued many insulting words to the Joseon kingdom, so that he stomped his sword. Seeing Seung-ho holding the sword, Gurutai realized he was a great swordsman, so he wanted to see Seung-ho's fighting ability. A moment later, the fight between Seung-ho and one of Gurutai's executioners, Hwasam, took place. Seung-ho looked serious and swung his sword precisely, while Hwasam looked ambitious and arrogant, thinking he was the best swordsman. However, with his composure and accuracy, Seung-ho won the sword fight by a landslide. Meanwhile, Tae-yul and Tae-ok have arrived at the trading post and meet the woman who owns the trading post named Hwaseon. Unfortunately, the price of herbal medicine is very high, and to get the medicine, one has to go through the inspection of local officials because the medicine is very rare. Hearing this, Tae-oki tried to offer the hunted skin she had previously prepared. But again, Hwaseon refused the skin because its value was not comparable to the price of the herbal medicine they were selling. Not long after, Gurutai and his men came to the place to rest for a while. After leaving the trading post, Tae-yul gives Tae-ok a bracelet she previously wanted at the village market. Afterward, they went to a food stall run by a woman who had breastfed Tae-ok as a baby. On the other hand, Mukyo comes to Hwaseon to ask for a girl who can work to take care of his mother. Hearing this, she suddenly thinks of Tae-ok and intends to offer her this job and earn enough money to buy the rare herbal medicine they need. The next morning, when it was still dark, Tae-yul went to the place of a sword craftsman who often made a sword for the royal family. He wants to ensure that the sword craftsman is still alive so that one day when he needs a sword, he can come to that place. At the same time, Hwaseon comes to a food stall to meet Tae-ok and offers her the job that was previously offered by Mukyo. After Tae-ok is met with Mukyo, he explains that he wants to adopt her as an adopted daughter. She will later get luxurious facilities like other official families so that she will get more than enough money to buy herbal medicine for her father. Hearing the offer, Tae-ok immediately agreed to Mukyo's offer because she wanted to help her father get a better life and the best medical care. The next day when Seung-ho visited Mukyo's house, he saw Tae-ok's red cloth, which was very similar to the cloth King Gwanghai had given him. Seung-ho then gets information from Mukyo that he will adopt her as his adopted daughter to take care of his mother. When Tae-yul returns to the restaurant, he is informed by the restaurant owner that Tae-ok has gone with the woman who owns the trading post, so he immediately rushes to go to the trading post. At the same time, there had been a commotion at the trading post because 3 of Gurutai's men intended to rape the servant girls there. Seeing the situation, Hwaseon and her bodyguards were forced to confront the 3 executioners and fight against them. When Hwaseon was almost killed by one of the executioners, Tae-ok came and slingshot him with a stone, injuring the man's face. Seeing the wound on his face, the man became angry and intended to attack her, but Tae-yul managed to prevent it. At first, Tae-yul avoided conflict by following the man's words to prostrate and apologize. But when Hwasam forces him to hand over the virgin Tae-ok to them, the battle between Hwasam and Tae-yul is unavoidable. Their fight was quite fierce, but Tae-yul seemed superior to Hwasam, and he managed to beat him in a landslide. It turns out that their fight was witnessed by Seung-ho secretly so that he knows that Sabak and King Gwanghai's daughter are still alive today. That night, Tae-yul decides to tell Tae-ok the truth about her identity and real parents. Hearing this, Tae-ok still respects Tae-yul as her father and wants to always protect him from repaying all of his kindness so far. She tells him that she will work as a nurse and become an official's adopted daughter so she can earn enough money to buy herbal medicine. Hearing that, Tae-yul was silent and couldn't do anything because her decision was unanimous. He feels very sad because he has to part with the one he has cared for quite a long time. On the other hand, Seung-ho sees Muk-yo and several other officials having a secret meeting and planning to find an adopted child as a substitute for their daughter. This is because the Qing Dynasty offered the Joseon Dynasty that they would free some slaves and lower the ransom price if the officials handed over their daughters to the Qing Dynasty rulers. In addition, Muk-yo had sent a letter of objection to King In-ju to take action against the cruelty of the Qing Dynasty. Seung-ho secretly eavesdrops on the conversation and realizes that the girl Muk-yo was about to adopt yesterday will be handed over to the Qing Dynasty. The next day, Gurutai's men seize the objection letter that Muk-yo wanted to send to King In-ju. After reading the letter's contents, Gurutai felt angry at Muk-yo, who had conspired to rebel against the Qing Dynasty. Therefore, he prepared special forces to raid Muk-yo's residence and massacre all Muk-yo's family members. As Tae-yul is walking home through the forest, he is suddenly attacked by some unknown men, and the fight begins again. After successfully defeating them all, Tae-yul realized that Tae-ok might be in danger, so he immediately rushed to the trading post to see her condition. In the evening, Gurutai and his troops came to Muk-yo's residence and started killing all of Muk-yo's servants. After that, Gurutai intends to kill Tae-oki, who he thinks is Muk-yo's daughter. However, one of Gurutai's men, who was stabbed by Tae-ok, recognizes her and tells Gurutai that she is not Muk-yo's biological daughter. Hearing this, he began to know the cunning of Muk-yo, who sacrificed another girl to save his own daughter. Shortly after, Seung-ho appeared and decided to accept his offer as a swordsman in the Qing Dynasty Empire, so Gurutai canceled killing Tae-ok. On the other hand, Hwasam attacks Hwaseon and forces her to tell him where Tae-yul is because he wants to take revenge on him for defeating him. Not long after, Tae-yul appeared and attacked Hwasam brutally until he died. Tae-yul then scolds Hwaseon for handing his daughter over to corrupt officials to become slaves. Hwaseon, who doesn't know anything about Muk-yo's cunning plan, takes him to Muk-yo's residence to find Tae-ok. Unfortunately, when he was there, everyone in the house had died in such a tragic state that Tae-yul immediately rushed to the headquarters of the swordsmen who had become henchmen of the Qing Dynasty. In a state of anger, Tae-yul slaughtered all the swordsmen in that place mercilessly to get information about the location of the girls enslaved by the Qing Dynasty. After that, Tae-yul goes to the border, where Joseon girls and women are trafficked to become sexual slaves. At the same time, Muk-yo goes to meet King In-ju to report that Gurutai has taken his daughter hostage. Unfortunately, after arriving at the royal palace, Gurutai had already met King In-ju, so Muk-yo couldn't say anything to the king. The scenes switch to Tae-yul, who has arrived at the border trying to find Tae-ok and the woman who owns the food stall, kidnapped by the swordsman. Tae-yul then goes to a tent after he hears a scream for help from the woman who owns the shop. When he arrived in the tent, some rude men tried to rape the woman, so Tae-yul immediately slaughtered all the men in the tent. Outside the tent, the only camp guard Tae-yul still hasn't killed appears drunk after he slept with the other slave girls. After slaughtering all the men in the tent, Tae-yul threatens the camp guards to free all the slaves there. But after all the female slaves were freed, he couldn't find Tae-ok's whereabouts and only found her bell bracelet given by one of the female slaves there. Tae-yul then ordered the man guarding the camp to take him to the location of the girls who would be enslaved by the rulers of the Qing Dynasty. The next day, Muk-yo plans to attack the Gurutai base on the border with the royal army without the knowledge of King In-ju. However, when one of Muk-yo's men was negotiating, he was suddenly attacked with a hand axe to his death, so the fight between Gurutai's men and the royal soldiers was unavoidable. Unfortunately, Gurutai's men fought with rifles, so they could easily slaughter the entire army of royal soldiers from a distance. Muk-yo, still hiding behind, decided to leave the place after witnessing that all the troops he brought were dead. But before he could leave, two other Gurutai's men appeared and threatened him with axes. At the same time, Tae-yul arrives at the place with the help of navigation from the camp guard man, who instantly dies when he is stabbed by an axe thrown by Gurutai's men. As a result of the attack, a 2-on-1 battle between Tae-yul and Gurutai's men ensued. Not long after, the Qing Dynasty troops who heard the commotion began to arrive and attacked Tae-yul with consecutive shots. Luckily, he could use the bodies of Gurutai's men as shields and use the opportunity to approach them and attack them all. After a very long and tiring battle, Tae-yul finally managed to defeat the entire enemy army until the only surviving executioner was frightened and fled from the place. Muk-yo, who realized that Tae-yul was Sabak who had protected King Gwanghae, immediately knelt before him and begged him to save his daughter, who had been kidnapped by Gurutai. In a state of weakness and blurred vision, Tae-yul replied by saying Muk-yo should not think about anything else and should try to improve the country's state that he had changed by the betrayal he committed in the past. After that, Tae-yul limped away before he finally fainted from exhaustion. The next day, when Tae-yul wakes up from his stupor, he finds himself at the trading post, and his eyes have been treated by Hwaseon using herbal medicine on Muk-yo's orders. After that, Tae-yul went to the swordsman he had met to pick up a new sword he would use to defeat Gurutai. At the same time, Seung-ho prepares to fight Tae-yul because Gurutai threatens that he will hurt the people of Joseon. The next day when Tae-yul arrives at Gurutai's headquarters, Seung-ho has been waiting for him to fight for their respective goals. Meanwhile, Gurutai and his servant girl would watch their fight while relaxing from the balcony. The battle between the two best swordsmen from the Joseon kingdom was fierce because both had very capable sword-fighting skills. But thanks to his strong determination to save Tae-ok and fulfill his promise to King Gwanghae, Tae-yul manages to defeat Seung-ho. After the fight ends, Gurutai invites Tae-yul to fight in a place where he can see Tae-ok, who has been tied up with iron chains. At the beginning of the fight, Tae-yul initially seemed difficult to deal with the attacks from Gurutai because of his speed. But after seeing Tae-ok being threatened with a sword by Gurutai's servant girl, Tae-yul becomes angry and excited to kill him. In the next round, Tae-yul intentionally injures the servant girl who is watching Tae-ok so he can ensure she is safe. After that, Tae-yul started to put out all his attacks and fought with all his might to defeat Gurutai. After a very fierce battle, Tae-yul finally managed to kill him. And he immediately hugged Tae-ok with a feeling of relief. Since Gurutai died as the leader of the slave post and the death of the entire Qing Dynasty army, all slaves were freed, and the remaining Qing Dynasty officials decided to leave the Joseon kingdom. The film closes with Tae-yul, who has reunited with his daughter, whom he loves very much, and lives their lives in peace and tranquility. So, what did you think of the movie? Leave it in the comments below, and if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you in the next video.